Welcome back to Nerf Diagnostic and Repair. I am Captain Xavier, and today we're going to be checking out some more blasters that were sent to me by fans to repair, starting with this Titan. Now, I warned them that Titans are notoriously hard to repair if seals have gone bad. And this one is particularly bad. It is just leaking straight out. It's not like a slow leak. So something's gone horribly wrong on the inside. We're going to pop it open and see if I can find the leak and if I can fix the leak. Now, whoever previously owned this somebody has opened this in the past. This back cap has already been broken loose, which is good, and some of the screws are quite magnificently stripped. That is, like, impressively. So, we'll see if we can even get this thing open. Okay, so I found the break, and it was at one of the locations I was suspecting, and it's at the pressure gauge link right here. This had blown loose, and if I just friction push it back in, it blows right back off again. So we are going to need to permanently affix that. We shall use some glue. Moment of truth! It lives! Alright, so for this particular one, the break was at the hose going to the pressure gauge, which does still work, as you can see. And that is actually often a place that you get a leak in these, is that whole system. And you can simply disable it entirely if you disconnect the hose from the back end of the tank and just glue in a screw or close it off in some way so that it's just sealed, and then you don't have this functionality anymore, but you don't have that leak. The other place you sometimes get leaks are down here where the Hornet connected, as that is often, you know, another area that is potentially unnecessary, but can cause leaks if this seal starts to go bad. All of those can be sealed up and aren't an issue. The only place where if it really goes bad, you're pretty much cooked is if the seal on the inside of the tank, the end of the tank, the release seal, if that goes bad, then you're pretty much cooked, because the tank itself does not come apart easily, so it'll be very difficult to get in to repair that. But small leaks are fairly easy to deal with. This one, it was very obvious where the leak was. The hose had popped loose. If it's less obvious, if it isn't like a whole hose is broken loose, what you'll generally need to do is take the whole system out and pump it up underwater so you can see where the bubbles are coming out. And then you can try to glue or seal or replace the tubes or what have you in order to seal that up. So there you have it. This is up and working, and we will get it back to whoever sent it. On to the next one. All right, up next we have this chaos that is doing nothing. No idea what its problem is, unless I'm missing something important. No rev, no fire. It's got fresh batteries. Well, it's got batteries. Alright, let's take it apart, see if we can figure out what went wrong. Well, it turned out to be an interesting fix. There actually wasn't a fix. The blaster's just fine. It's the magazine that's the problem. It's missing the top cover, and without the top cover, it doesn't disengage this lock. Disengage that lock, blaster works just fine. However, without that top piece, when you put the magazine in, it doesn't disengage that lock. So that's the problem. The question is, does anybody have a replacement for that? I will check Thingiverse and see if there's one on there, and if there is, I'll print it and send it back. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to buy a new magazine, which I do believe they did sell So you might be able to get one, but they're not cheap, which is sad. Alright, on to the next contestant. Alright, up next we have a Vulcan that is not working. I do not know what its issue is. We will see if we can ascertain. Well, the battery box screw appears to be stripped out for one. It's got batteries. Why you would ship it with batteries, I'm not sure. That had to have doubled the price. These things have led a rough life. Let's see if there's any power in them. We do have a lot of corrosion on the battery pack, so that alone could have been it if the batteries are good. Okay, the batteries are good. Don't see any corrosion in there, so we're going to try just going with a different battery sled and see if that fixes it. If I can find one. There were at least 2 different releases of the Vulcan, and you can see they had slightly different battery sleds, battery trays, so we're going to go with the one that matches. I don't know that it makes a difference, but I don't want to find out. That was it! Now it works! Let's actually get a belt with some darts and see if it'll actually shoot them. Yep. Well, that was another super easy fix. So, the issue was the corrosion on that side. Actually, it looks like it's corroded on both sides. But if there is sufficient corrosion on a battery tray, it won't make connection because the corrosion is not conductive. And so it just won't work. So, we're going to try cleaning that up real quick. There are a number of ways that you can clean corrosion. A wire brush for scraping off the larger chunks. And then I like to use my diamond-headed files because they're omnidirectional and fairly precise. There we go. So just a little bit of a wire brush and a little bit of file, and I was able to get enough of the corrosion off to get it to function. So let's clean it up a little bit more with some sandpaper, starting with a 220 grit and then going to a 600 grit just to get the fine bits off. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but you can now see that they are shiny instead of all blackened. So this is a good step to check anytime you have an electronic blaster that isn't working, especially one that's been sitting for a long time or that you got from Goodwill. Check the battery tray and make sure that there isn't corrosion on the leads. If there are, you can do what I did and take it off with a wire brush and a file and sandpaper. There are also chemical options. If you put either vinegar or lemon juice onto a Q-tip, it will dissolve a lot of the corrosion. You can also use baking soda and a little bit of water. That will also help dissolve the corrosion. Make sure that you dry it very well afterwards, of course, and then you should be able to test it. If you have the right tools, you can put your batteries in your tray and then test and see if there's any voltage coming off of them. If you have a voltmeter or even a battery tester, you can test it that way as long as your battery tester is rated for 9 volts or whatever the voltage of the batteries are while in serial. Anyway, yeah, this one's up and going, so we will get this one shipped back as well. Onward! Alright, well, circling back around to our first one, I was, in fact, able to print out the top of the magazine thanks to Derikksun, who made it available on Thingiverse. And it does fit, and it does lock. So, let's put a couple of rounds in here. Well, it revs. What seems to be the conundrum here? Well, that's not good. Well, it looks like the retention pegs, knobs, have just cracked. So they're not really holding in that well. Alright, I drilled a couple of holes, put in a couple of screws, and now that shouldn't fall out as easily. Alright, it took a little bit of filing and a little bit of sanding, and it's not as pretty as when it came off the print bed, but it does now work. So hopefully it will continue to. I think the batteries are probably part of the issue. They're probably old and a little bit slow, but it seems to be firing well enough. I've never had one of these, so I don't actually know how they're supposed to fire. I modified Jomo's, but then it was running on 3S LiPo, so that's a whole different ball of wax. But it is now working at least well enough that I'm going to send it back, and he can tinker with it from there. Alright, so that is several fairly simple repairs. Chaos won't work unless you have the top of the mag, which tends to pop off and get lost, so be aware of that. Titans have plenty of places they spring leaks, and you need to make sure that your battery tray is not corroded. So those are the lessons for this episode. If you have a blaster you'd like to be repaired, email me at my commission email address and we can discuss it. And if I accept it, then you can mail it to me and I'll try to repair it and send it back to you. So, hope this was helpful. Thank you guys for watching.